Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to episode 51 of the Leading IT podcast. This episode is about fighting concussion in sport with cloud and IoT. And today we're joined by HITIQ's CTO, David Erikson. For those who are new to the podcast, it's hosted by Tom Leyden, the CIO at Longview, and me, Josh Rubens, the CEO from Cloud Solutions Group. And if you're new, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. The purpose of our show is for IT leaders to discover unique and valuable insights into current trends from both sides of the vendor-client paradigm. We tackle relevant and time-sensitive topics like cloud, AI, cybersecurity, infrastructure, strategy, and leadership, and how to deal with emerging IT threats and opportunities. But first, we'll start with some headlines. G'day, Tom. How you going?
G'day, Josh. Going well. Good to have some warm weather back in our lives, right? Bit of spring.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah,
I was at
finally.
the Sunshine Coast a couple of weeks ago for a wedding, and it was 23 and it was beautiful. And I came back the next day and it was low of 7, top of 12.
Yeah, right. Well, hopefully those days are behind us, right? In Melbourne, it's getting a bit sunnier.
Yeah,
And
so it's nice. I think this week we're 23 and above all week. So yay.
Yeah, but this is not the weather podcast, thank God. So let's talk about some IT news.
No, but
I've just got a few ones. So I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah,
iPhone 15, it's out. The big news is the USB charger. We've got to throw out our other chargers now and go back into USB-C chargers. A little bit frustrating, but that's not, it's like, so what? Who cares? But hopefully it's less technical junk, which is a good thing. But what they're doing, they're starting to really pack their little phones with equipment that makes them augmented reality ready. So they're starting to put the technology in to enable their headphones and their earpieces. So that'll come next year, but they're starting to load their phones up with this kind of equipment now, which is quite interesting. So I think that'll be consumer-driven technology next year, and then we'll all be running around like mad people trying to work out how to bring augmented reality into our workspaces. Josh, that's my prediction.
No, that's exciting, and it's good to finally have the Samsung and Apple devices can be charged on the one thing with USB-C rather than having to have different cables. That's
frustrating, isn't it?
That's been really annoying. So for me, I'm just going to cover off. So VMware Explore 2023 was a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas, and unfortunately, I didn't get to go. Although I am going to the Microsoft Power Platform conference in Las Vegas in 2 weeks. So
very nice. Very good.
Looking forward to reporting back from that one. So there wasn't a heap of news. So normally we do a separate episode, but I think because of the Broadcom, the pending acquisition, and I don't think you're actually allowed to start new business, totally new business initiatives while you're under some sort of SEC restriction when you're getting acquired. So I don't think that I think that resulted in there not being anything, totally new and exciting. But there were still some points of interest from the event. So I'm just going to cover off some of the main bits of news. So last year, they announced something called Project North Star. So that was the cloudification of their NSX product. So essentially, if you have on-premise environments, you've got some infrastructure in AWS, some in Azure, or in a co-location. So how do you do common networking and security across all of those environments? So the VMware NSX product was something that allows you to do that on premises, to do micro segmentation, software defined networking. So now VMware, this NSX Plus service is essentially a cloud delivered service where you have a single console where you can manage the networking and security across your whole environment, whether it's AWS, Azure, on-prem, etc. So so that was announced last year as North Star. So now it's available. Right. And the other big change is around how they're packaging their software. So not going to be a surprise to anyone that VMware are moving to more of a subscription model with the acquisition. They're going to want to get their money back. So they've got 5 new bundles. So something called VMware Cloud Essentials, Cloud Standard, Pro, Advanced, and Enterprise, which all include sort of different features, and they can be consumed either customer managed on-prem or at a colo, or VMware managed or partner managed, initially by IBM only. So there's going to be, so customers can choose stacks. So these things will include VM, the hypervisor, whether you want HCI or various cloud services or security services from VMware. So you can bundle them up nicely, and then you have a choice of where you want to manage and deploy them. And this one's been around a little while, but they've changed the name of it. It's called the Edge Cloud Orchestrator. Do you like that one, Tom? VECO. So there's a new acronym, VECO, VMware Edge Cloud Orchestrator.
Right. Okay. Sure.
So the issue is that customers are having edges around bringing the infrastructure close to where we've spoken about it many times, where there's IoT, where there's sensors, where you're getting information, and you need to make decisions.
The data, right?
Exactly. You need to make decisions. So how are you going to manage all those? So if you're a retailer and you've got 150 stores, how are you going to manage all those devices, whether they're IoT and you have infrastructure? So this new product, VMware Edge Cloud Orchestrator. So it allows you to manage all your IoT devices, so patching, orchestration, also the infrastructure. So if you've got hyperconverged infrastructure, if you're running virtual machines or containers, so allow you to manage all of those, and also their SASE products. So things like SD-WAN, edge security products. So they're now bundling it into one product where they're converging security, orchestration, and management through this platform. So that's pretty exciting. Again, it's been talked about in previous years, but now it's more the realization of this product. And from an AI point of view, so VMware aren't going to miss out on AI. So it may not surprise you, there was an announcement of a collaboration with NVIDIA. So yet another person has jumped into bed with NVIDIA. So they've got a VMware stack. It's called VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA. So you can have a software-defined stack, and which will support NVIDIA GPUs, DPUs, SmartNICs, and there's going to be some.
So it brings NVIDIA into their management consoles, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So the NVIDIA NeMo framework. So you can run it on premises, and then there'll be some supported stacks from HPE, Lenovo, and Dell. And then the last one, Tom, I can tell you're keen for me to finish, but this is literally the last one, is called vSAN Max. So I'm a big fan of vSAN. Lots of our customers have vSAN. This is actually pretty exciting. So essentially, it's deconstructed hyperconverged infrastructure. So you can have storage-only nodes, and you scale out storage-only nodes, which you can connect to existing on-prem vSphere compute stack. So it's total separation of compute and storage scale, which is for customers that are doing that is unlike you. If you were more on-prem, you would be more excited by that. But that's
no, I get it. People are still on-prem. Like it's still a thing. We're not all cloud. No. We've still got to think about servers in racks and rooms.
Yes.
And,
yes. So that is a big one. For me, that's the most exciting. I think the most exciting thing that came out of.
Most exciting. Are you seeing much uptake for this, Josh? Are you seeing people really getting behind this North Star concept? And
North Star, not yet. I mean, obviously, it's just been announced. The vSAN is
it's a big thing.
Huge. vSAN is huge. Yet we've been doing hardly selling any SANs. It's all been hyperconverged infrastructure. But it's pretty big. I think for the right sort of customer, this would be huge. Yeah.
No, the use cases are really impressive. It just simplifies infrastructure, right? That's what you're saying. So it makes it easier to manage, reduces your cost.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty good. So perhaps we should bring on our guest, Josh.
Yes. So we want to welcome David Erikson, who's the CTO at HITIQ. So David's been in the IT industry for over 30 years. He's been the CTO at HITIQ for 3 years and has worked at organisations such as Sun Microsystems, Intel, and AMD. So welcome, David.
I think you put a little age on me.
We all suffer from that.
Yeah. No, I would say 25 and not
25.
quite 30 yet, but yeah. You put a few extra on me there, so all good.
Sorry about that.
Happy to be here. Thanks, guys, for inviting me. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so David, do you want to maybe tell us a bit that I gave a very brief background? Do you want to maybe give us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I mean, kind of as you mentioned, I've worked in a variety of different industries, semiconductors, medical devices, did some enterprise storage, a couple startups, consulting. So I've kind of seen a bunch of different angles on this. I think when I look across, I started in hardware. Actually designed servers at Intel, Itanium servers back in the day, in the 90s, and but subsequently worked in embedded, managed teams, wound up doing system architecture, chip architecture, moved on to full system devices, hardware, software, mechanical, and then just more up the management, and different roles, all engineering, all technical, all the way up.
Yeah. And so how did you wind up at a startup then?
So interesting. You mentioned Sun. And back, I worked at a startup right after I left Sun. We were doing basically a Netflix competitor pre-streaming. If you can believe it, it was a movie delivery service, and they needed somebody to basically build out a bunch of hardware. I built a set-top box and a ruggedized hard drive, and ran an engineering team to build out a whole web infrastructure. And anyway, the idea was shipping a hard drive full of movies that you got to pick through the mail. You plug it into your Sling box or your TiVo or whatever, and you could play whatever movies you wanted. And that was back in the day when people were shipping DVDs. Right?
Yeah, right.
And so, anyway, a lot of interesting stuff. But I went and did that, and then the GFC hit, and raising funds became exceedingly difficult, and that was the end of that. So, anyway,
sounds like a great idea.
Oh, it was a blast. At the time. Yeah. Well, and we had vision to move into streaming and all of that kind of stuff. Sure. But it was it was just this window of opportunity, and couldn't capitalize on it. So here we are.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So HITIQ is it's a business that's been around for 6 years. It's in the concussion measurement, management, and rehabilitation space. So we have 4 current products on the market. One of them is actually I'll show you. We make these smart mouth guards.
So this is a mouth guard, right?
Yeah. So this is a smart mouth guard. We sell it to sporting organizations all around the world. AFL.
So what makes it smart, right? It's a mouth guard, but it's full of tech, right?
Yeah, you can see there's electronics in there. So it has a printed circuit board, little Bluetooth micro, accelerometer, gyro, flash, little battery.
Wow.
And we have charging systems like this. This is an individual.
So you charge your mouth guard.
Yeah, you charge your mouth guard.
Yeah,
this is an individual case that we sell to consumers.
So for the listeners, we are actually doing video, so we will be posting video on YouTube soon, so we will be able to see it. So it's really, because I think, and also David, I mean, really timely. The whole of Melbourne was in uproar because of Braden Maynard yesterday with the hit on Brayshaw, and I don't know if many people know, but HITIQ is heavily utilised within the AFL.
Oh yeah, all the players have access to wear the mouth guard. I forget what the uptake is, but I think it's north of half the players wear it regularly. The AFLW, the women wear it a lot more. I think they've realized I think the value of it. I think it's been evangelized to them maybe a little bit more, but there's more uptake in the AFLW, and it's really interesting data that comes out of it. All the head kinematics, a lot of metrics. You can spot trends. There's a whole bunch of things that team doctors and
Yeah.
the players themselves.
So I mean, we're all like, all the technical guys are on the, listen to this. They're kind of really, I want to know how it works, right? So without obviously giving away the secret sauce.
No, it's. I mean,
what
at
can
the
you
end of
share
the
with
day,
us?
think of it as think of it like it's a 6th degree of freedom IMU.
Yeah, right.
So it's a gyro and an accelerometer. Both 3D,
IMU, what does that stand for?
inertial measurement unit.
Right. So that's
and
kind of
so-
shoved into
so
the mouth guard.
Yeah, well, just did you ever play with a Wii?
Yeah, it's one of those.
So it's the Wii controller without a magnetometer. So you can do sensor fusion on it. Basically, do the math, and I can then tell you how your head has moved based on impacts or acceleration events. So there's all sorts of different data sets that we can pull out of them.
Yeah.
And ultimately where we want to go is down the path. There's kind of 2 different directions. One of them is in the acute concussion space, which, MTBI, all of that.
Huge.
And understanding and basically helping people get the right assessments, flag people that, I don't know if either of you played contact sports, but there were certainly plenty of times I probably should have been dragged off the field, but wasn't. And, so there's, or assessed after the fact, right?
Yep.
So we're trying to, I guess, allow people to spot those cases, more effectively, and so people can manage their exposure. And then the other direction that's really kind of emerging, and I think is really in the news right now, if you're following the space, is the repetitive head impact information, and that leads to more of a chronic, pathway towards things like CTE, and there's some really interesting research coming out on this space. And so there's these 2 vectors. There's the acute, which is something happened in an event, whereas the other one is a cumulative effect.
Right.
And we can basically capture both of those as we go forward.
Right. So David, sorry. So essentially, tell me if I'm wrong. The mouth guard is like an IoT device in a way.
In a way.
It's capturing data. So and then it's sending it out to AWS. Do you want to maybe tell us a bit about the architecture?
Yeah. I'll comment on that. So we have the usage model currently it's a record and offload. So it's not a live offload. We use Bluetooth. So the architecture is mouth guard, team of mouth guards capture data in a session, offload via like an iPad mobile app up to the cloud. It's all AWS. We process it in a serverless infrastructure through a bunch of algorithms, databases, generate interesting insights, and then access it from the mobile app or a web app. So we have a web portal that we provide to teams and leagues and in some cases users to interrogate the data. And so it's I guess as we go forward, and I think one of the things you wanted to talk about eventually was kind of where you're going. We're looking at things around how to do that more real time.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
How to do. I call it a opportunistic offload. I don't think you can probably call it live offload because of the range of Bluetooth, right?
Yeah.
If you imagine people running around on a footy pitch, at the MCG or something like that, unless you have base stations around or some, I guess ways that you can have proximity to that. If you had a single iPad,
you couldn't have an aerial coming out your mouth, could you?
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Well, if we switch radio frequencies to like 900 megahertz or something, you could. So the other problem is 2.4 gig doesn't want to reach through water. So people are basically, your big bag of water, right, at the end of the day, and unless you open up your mouth, you actually attenuate the signal quite dramatically.
Right.
And there's directionality out of it as well, which is interesting.
So you need the players to look at the Bluetooth receiver.
Yeah, exactly.
Upload their data.
So there's definitely some challenges in that space, but beyond that, the rest of it in terms of offloading reliably and processing quickly and getting results it's all there, right?
Yeah, awesome.
It's really cool stuff.
And your role, David, do you have a role in helping design, build any of this stuff?
Oh yeah. So I guess in pretty much everything. So I'm not a software guy, but in terms of the the architecture, the directions around, I guess the methodologies, so we've really pushed kind of best practices around, everything's infrastructure as code, everything's automated, everything's all the CI/CD is, it's great.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, like if you go and you think about what you ought to do, and we're truly a cloud first company.
Yeah.
There was no on-prem, right? That never existed. It started in the cloud. It was born in the cloud. It was born in serverless. Right. So the infrastructure selection right off the bat was done in a way that's highly scalable, easily managed. And I think the system architecture, lends itself to, I guess, using the best practices that people have out there currently.
Yeah, very, very good. So, I mean, obviously security is a huge,
absolutely.
A huge part of what you guys do. You're storing so much personal information.
Yeah, well, yeah, and depending on the regulatory regime around the world, I mean, we're obviously subject to GDPR and APPs in Australia. As we sell things in the US that become medical devices, and I'll talk some more about some of the other products. We have a couple, medical devices in development as well.
Right.
And we'll be subject to HIPAA, and you have all the privacy rules. But yeah, it's all PII. It's stuff you have to protect, and you have to do a good job, right? And so we're pursuing currently an ISO 27001 cert. We had our stage 1 audit a couple weeks ago, and that went really well. So I think
congratulations.
we're well poised for that coming up. But yeah, I mean, security is something that we take in as like fundamental requirements when we think about any of the product designs. I've done it a few times, but I've gone through and analyzed all the regulations around the world that we have to comply with, and synthesized them into a set of common requirements. And it's not just technical requirements. I mean, there's contractual, and there's supplier, and there's all these different elements that flow into this that you have to take into account. But from a technical perspective, everything, it's encrypted at rest, encrypted in transit. We have strong authentication methods, great account segregation. If you look at the AWS well-architected framework and look through that, we actually did a review not too long ago, and we actually did remarkably well. We'd worked with a third party on it, and they commented that none of their other clients scored as well. Which I for a small company, I mean, we're like 35 people, right? So it's not a huge group of folks. About half of us are engineers in the business, and to have somebody who's looked across hundreds of clients and had big ones working with them, I thought that was a pretty good endorsement of
for sure
things right.
It sounds like you've built security from the ground up. It sounds like that. Build that front of mind. Account. It's just how you've done it. You haven't applied it later.
No. All the regulatory stuff, all the privacy stuff was built in. I mean, we started with it's privacy by design, right? I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? And so we took into account. Basically, if somebody wants to collect PII, I make them justify why we need to do it. So actually, for every piece of PII that we think we want to collect, I actually have a document that justifies why we actually do it.
Yeah, right.
And my argument is, well, if we don't need to collect it, you shouldn't. Right? If you can't justify why you need it, don't get it.
Very good.
It's another thing to protect, and it's another thing that if something goes sideways and you go down the really off this pathway, another thing to get you in trouble. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Reputational ruining, right? Particularly at an early stage organisation, right? You just can't afford to do it.
Can't tolerate it.
And what's amazing, Dave, like the breadth of your role. I mean, unbelievable. Like you're doing product development, you're doing cloud and infrastructure build out. You're the CISO. You're doing ISO certification.
Yep. I put in the QMS as well. So 13485, I put that into play.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so on the team, I have a hardware engineer, really sharp guy who works for me, but I have to do all his design reviews. And, we talk about, the optical properties of the material for our optical sensor, right? And how we calibrate that, right? So I mean, you're down in the weeds all the way up to business strategy, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, that's the thing that's cool about the role, right? You look at just the sheer breadth of and range of things that you have to have your finger on the pulse and be in the mix on.
Yeah.
How do you manage that, David? I mean, for we have lots of IT leaders listening. How do you manage such a breadth of responsibility?
It's an interesting question. It's maybe kind of a weak answer. I think I've been good at doing that, which is why I'm here.
Right.
Right. I don't have a recipe or anything. I've just been able to keep track of a gazillion things at different levels of abstraction up and down the stack, and have hopefully a reasonable business sense and an understanding of how organizations should work, as well as process and methodology to wrap around that. Like I'm a big believer in following standards and using good methodologies and best practices everywhere you can, and it's pretty simple, but yeah, I don't. I mean, I read a lot. Maybe that helps. And I think that it's actually surprising how few people actually read much anymore.
Oh, it's so true. There's so much information out there, right? But people want to do it themselves, reinvent everything. Yeah. Because they just took a moment, and it sounds like you do this. You just look at the best way to do things or find the right process.
Yeah. Well, I analogize things to cooking sometimes. So to me, it's like you go read 5 recipes to figure out how you want to make something, and then make it your way, right? And that's, I think, pretty common. We're not doing anything. We are doing new things, but we're putting together existing technologies in novel ways. And so in terms of actually truly inventing something, most of what we're doing is plumbing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're hooking this data source to that thing using known technologies and known methods, and so why not just use the tried and true best practice in the environment that you're in?
Yeah. So, just in terms of the competition that you're seeing in this space, I feel like you guys are out there by yourselves at the moment. Is that true, or do you have competition coming at you?
Yeah. There's competition. There's in the space. There's a couple players around the world. There's one big one that's, I guess, our major competitor. There's a couple others that are more research tool focused.
Okay, right, yeah.
And then there's a couple other ones that are, I think, trying to get into the space.
Right.
So yeah, it's but it's it's not a big. I don't think we've gone mass market yet, right? So if you look at the the adoption curve, the adoption life cycle, I think there's probably us and our main competitor fighting over the the front 15%, the early adopter space there. And I think when it goes mass market, at least in the there's a few geographies to penetrate further, and then we'll be off to the races there. So
I'm surprised. I mean, you think with all the court action, like the AFL, there's there's court action. There's been the stuff in the NFL. I would have thought it would be huge.
Yeah. So it's I think in the pro sports you see it. Colleges in the U.S. have not been strong adopters.
Right.
I think they're looking for. I mean, there's some challenges there around in the past, and I'm probably not the one to speak to it. Our chief commercial officer probably knows more about it. But my understanding is in the past, a lot of colleges in the U.S. were actually getting paid by researchers to wear mouth guards. And so when you rock up and you say, "Hey, I want you to buy something from me," the value prop is really difficult for them. So, but I think certainly in Australia, New Zealand, UK, we have strong sales and great partners, great relationships with people in these. But we also sell into other places. There's we have customers in in Japan doing judo.
There you go.
There's MMA and UFC people. I don't know the full details there, but there's combat sports. There's hockey. There's lacrosse. There's all sorts of things.
And you've obviously get whacked in the head, right?
Yeah. But then if we step beyond the mouthguard product and we look at kind of the next thing there, actually, I'll just mention real quick. We have a consumer version of the mouthguard product that we sell in Australia as well. And that one is we launched that recently, and we're seeing some uptake there, which is great. So the next product line is really it's a sideline assessment tool, and so this one is it's used at the elite level for when somebody has a head knock. They pull them off to the sideline. They ask them some questions. What quarter are we in? Who scored last?
How many fingers am I holding up?
And they basically do a head impact assessment, and they decide whether or not they need to pull them and run through the basically the SCAT program in the locker room. And then we have a whole other assessment type that they can run through, which is customized for the different customers. So we sold to beyond footy, rugby, soccer, EL, a lot of colleges, a lot of different sports around the world use it beyond oblong sports. So, and we have a consumer version of that as well. That we actually launched in Australia recently. It's targeted at community sport. And the interesting thing there was, if you go to elite sport, there's a doctor on the sideline, right? They can pull the person off. They run the assessment. When they take them in the back, they run the assessment and they make their medical assessment based on this guided workflow. You don't have that when you go out and your kids playing sports, right? They get knocked, right, at practice. Well, what do? You take them to the doctor, right? But the interesting thing is the care that people get is so variable out there. You might not go to the doctor, and if you go to the doctor, they might not actually know anything about concussion.
That's right.
And I mean, it's the sad state of affairs, but it's the reality based on our surveys. So we found that the best thing we could do was set it up so that mom and dad had resources about understanding how to manage concussion and the ability to book a telehealth appointment. Like if I went under our system, we could book a telehealth appointment probably in less than an hour with a concussion expert. So there's a doctor service on call in Australia, a partner that we have, and they're great. And then the coaches and the teams, they just want to know, can all these kids play?
Yeah, that's right.
They don't want to have to keep track of who's cleared and who's not cleared and who got the doctor's note and all of that. They just want to know, are all the kids who showed up at practice today allowed to play? And so our system takes care of that, and it's really cool. So then beyond
about David? What about I'm just thinking aloud here. I would think the military, special forces, like you'd think they would be interested in this sort of thing, or not. Or was that just
it's interesting. So I mean, it depends on which product, but we do have some mill use of mouthguard. For instance, there's I think there's some academic papers coming out on that. Basically, sniper rifle recoil.
Which
is really cool.
Right. But it's more workplace health and safety, right? I mean, it's all those jobs that involve some sort of physical thing that that they need to monitor the health and safety of their work. So that's the military.
I think the metric
mining
that I heard was I guess the number of head impacts that you have in some of these situations is probably rivals or exceeds what an AFL player could experience.
Wow.
Right? On a year by year basis. Right. And so, and that's in normal training. You send them out, somewhere else and it's unlimited. So,
So in terms of, so you're starting to scale up, you've got good cloud infrastructure in place. The team, talk us about your tech team behind you. So you've got a couple of engineers.
Yeah, so I have a hardware engineer, a firmware engineer. Our production manager is a mechanical engineer, which helps. And then beyond that, I have 10 kind of front end full stack devs for really our products, our mobile apps, our web apps, and the back end infrastructure. I have a couple folks that are really one guy that's really DevOps focused, but a couple folks are capable in that space. And then I have a couple folks that are more algorithm
data kind of guys.
Yeah, data, but beyond that, one of them's a neuropsychologist. They're all PhDs, like they're all phenomenally brilliant people. So one of them's a neuropsychologist who's done a heck of a lot of work on like MRI and brain, understanding how brains work ultimately. We have another one who's a like control theory, electrical engineers that can do all the solid body mechanics, all the really hairy kinematics math, and all the signal processing and all of that kind of stuff that goes into it. And there's some really sophisticated stuff in terms of, how do you take these waveforms and pull the noise out of them, right? Wind up with a valid residual that measures accurately in all these different
and translate that to something normal a sports coach could actually understand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you come in our lab or you go to we send out our mouth guards for testing at Virginia Tech. And they have these giant pendulum systems. So they put a crash test dummy head there and they mount the mouth guard on them and they whack them with these pendulums, and it's like anywhere from 25 to 150 G impacts and all these different orientations. And you have to measure really accurately on that. We're well up above. Anyway, there's some metrics where we're up in the very high 90s in terms 90 out of 100 in terms of our measurement quality there.
I was wondering how you tested it besides whacking people in the mouth, like punching each other.
No, it's really cool. We have drop towers and pendulums in the lab.
So you don't have a boxing ring in your office.
And then beyond that, it's really beyond that you get into we have a whole capability around. I guess we have staff that it's called sports coding. So they watch the videos of the professional sports, and they have the timeline of when the events are, and they basically go, that was an impact, that wasn't an impact, they code what happened in there, and that's how we get we understand the performance of the system as well as we get like training data for various ML things. So we have I guess in our data pipeline things like classifiers that are done. We actually have academic papers written on it.
Great.
About how our classifiers work.
And you guys are all Melbourne-based, or where is your team?
It's an Australian company. So most folks are here in Melbourne. Have an engineer in Canberra, a guy in New Zealand. Have another guy in the Philippines. But yeah, for the most part, it's here in Melbourne.
Yeah, fantastic.
Although I think one of the guys he's off in. He's in Pakistan currently visiting family, and another one I think is up in Chiang Mai for a few weeks, working from there. So anyway,
that's how it works.
Flexible environment.
So it was a really good story. You've got a whole bunch of really smart data type people, scientists, and then product engineers coming together to produce something that seems to be quite world breaking. Like a really innovative, exciting product.
And I have visited their office. It's not far from ours, and it's amazing. It's really impressive. And David, just to maybe we're getting out of time, but I think maybe tell us, so you some of the stories. So AFL, AFLW, is it EPL? Like maybe, do you want to tell us a bit about who will be keen to know who's using the product?
So yeah,
if you're allowed to tell us.
Well, no, I mean, not individually, but
no,
like and
in general.
To be honest, like I don't even like we as the engineers we don't actually look at it that way. All we see is like serial numbers.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
And that's by design, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like we shouldn't know.
That's right.
Right. And that's part of like the whole privacy system.
We want to know, but you shouldn't tell us.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
not players, but like teams, like so it's AFL teams or EPL teams.
Every AFL team, every AFLW team. I don't know all the UK rugbies, but there's a whole bunch of different UK based rugby teams and leagues, and into Scotland and
yep.
There's Irish things going on, and I don't know I don't understand the full rugby landscape, but
it's all right. We don't either.
No, but they need protection. Those guys, they'd be a great use case. I've seen them play. They need
Absolutely.
mouth guards.
And then in the States we have several colleges that we're working with as well, and then there's, like I mentioned, lacrosse and hockey, ice hockey, I should say.
Great.
Real hockey.
Great use case.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. This goes on and on.
Very good.
I think it's fascinating. I think and exciting stuff. I feel the sky's the limit, David. I think the company HITIQ, go from or rocket from strength. I think you're on the ASX at the moment.
We're
on
the ASX. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And
so
onward and upward. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a tip there in it for some people. There's a tip in there for some people.
I don't want to curse anyone by recommending you though, because usually
no, but it's anyway. People can make up their own. People can make up their own minds. But no, well, thanks, David. That's fascinating and full of admiration for the role, and what you're doing is really helping society as well. I think there's a massive sort of impact that must make you feel really good about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the staff comment on is, and I think you get that whenever you work in a medical or medical related thing. Well, our device is not yet, it's not a medical system, the mouth guard. We're not making any diagnostic claims or anything like that. But the VR system will be a medical device at some point. And we have visions of how we can, turn the mouth guard that direction and start making claims there eventually. And when that happens, you're affecting people's lives, right? You're helping
positively.
them.
Yep.
Yeah. By positive change in their ability to manage their health, right? And I think that's important, and I reflect on, I played college football, right? And I just reflect back on, I think, I would have benefited from this. And I think, certainly a bunch of my colleagues back in the day would have. And if you look at the changes in the game, the way they don't tackle as much in practice, and some of the rule changes and whatnot, it's been dramatic in 20 some odd years. So.
Yeah, no, excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on to the Leading IT podcast, David. Really appreciate.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. And Tom, as always, 51 episodes. How you going?
Good.
You hanging in?
Yeah, no, well, good. I'm looking forward to 500. Actually, I think we'll. I don't know if we're going to find guests like David around, but we'll keep cracking on. But as a parent of kids in sport, I'm really looking forward to seeing this product hit community clubs. I think it's going to make a huge impact. You see kids get smacked on the wherever on the field, and then parents sort of don't know what to do, and the kids sent back out, and having data. Great example of data being used in a timely manner. IoT use cases taken to extreme levels. So David, really wish you all the best with the product as well.
Yeah, so I think your teenage son Tom, if he's playing footy, you would want him. You would want him to have that.
I think every parent would. Yeah.
I think so too. And yeah, thank you for those listening. Soon we will be having a video if you are at all interested in seeing what we're doing and what we look like. But otherwise we'll continue to do audio. And as always, you can contact me at jrubens@cloudsolutionsgroup.com.au. And thanks once again for listening.
Thanks,
Tom. Thanks, David.